People think HOA drama is about overgrown lawns or garbage bins left out too long. But imagine this: your autistic child quietly playing in your own driveway, suddenly treated like a criminal. Police cars pulling up, neighbors gathering, and a smug HOA president thinking she holds all the power. What she didn't know? I wasn't just another parent. I was the district attorney, and her reign of harassment was about to explode in her face. It all started on what should have been an ordinary Saturday afternoon. The sun was warm, a light breeze carried the faint smell of freshly cut grass, and my son Daniel was in the driveway, lined up with his toy cars in the perfectly ordered rows that always brought him peace. Daniel is 12 years old. He's brilliant, thoughtful, and yes, he's autistic. His way of interacting with the world doesn't always look the way others expect, but to me and my wife, every small habit of his is a piece of who he is. The way he hums while lining up his red, blue, and green toy cars. The way he rocks slightly when he's overwhelmed but grounds himself with familiar sounds. These are the things that make him Daniel. Most of our neighbors knew about Daniel's diagnosis. We had spoken to them more than once, explaining that if they saw him outside, repeating phrases, pacing, or arranging his toys, he wasn't acting strange, he was just self-regulating. But there was always one person who refused to understand. Karen. Karen was the self-proclaimed HOA enforcer. She wasn't technically the president of the HOA board, but she acted as if the neighborhood was her personal kingdom. Clipboard always in hand, pastel blazer pressed like a uniform, and a permanent scowl that suggested she had been born disapproving. At first, her complaints had been small. Trash cans not pulled in fast enough, our mailbox looking slightly tilted, Daniel's chalk drawings on the sidewalk being graffiti. I had brushed them off. I had a demanding job as the district attorney for the county, and the last thing I wanted was to waste energy sparring with a woman whose life revolved around HOA power trips. But nothing prepared me for the day she crossed the ultimate line. I was in the kitchen, sipping coffee, when I saw the flashing red and blue lights outside my window. My stomach immediately dropped. Nothing good comes from a patrol car slowly rolling down a quiet suburban street on a Saturday afternoon. "Mark?" my wife asked nervously, peeking through the blinds. "Why are there cops here?" I hurried to the door and stepped outside, my heart pounding. There, in our driveway, Daniel froze like a deer in headlights as the lights reflected off his glasses. He was clutching his favorite red toy car, the one he carried everywhere when he felt scared. His small frame rocked back and forth as two uniformed officers stepped out of their cruiser, hands resting on their belts. One officer glanced at me, then at Daniel. "We got a call for a possible trespasser," he said flatly. My pulse spiked. A trespasser? On my own property? My eyes flicked instinctively toward Karen's house, and right on cue, her garage door rolled open and she strutted out like a queen arriving at court. Clipboard in hand, lips pursed, and her voice sharp as glass. "That's him!" she barked, pointing at Daniel. "That boy has been wandering around, muttering, acting suspicious. I don't feel safe. None of us do." Daniel's lips trembled. "Dad? Did I do something wrong?" he whispered. That question nearly broke me. I stepped forward, voice sharp as a blade. "That's my child, on his own driveway." Karen folded her arms. "Children like that can't just be left unsupervised. It makes people uncomfortable." The way she said, "children like that," made my blood boil. The officers shifted uncomfortably, caught between protocol and common sense. They knew this didn't feel right, but a report had been filed and they were obligated to respond. Karen, emboldened, jabbed her pen toward Daniel. "Search him, question him, We can't have threats wandering this neighborhood. Threats. She just called my son, a 12-year-old autistic boy clutching a toy car, a threat. Something inside me snapped. I pulled my wallet from my pocket, flipped it open, and held out my badge. The gold district attorney emblem glinted in the sunlight. The officers froze. Their entire demeanor shifted. "Sir, we didn't realize." "No," I cut them off firmly. "What you need to realize is that filing a false police report is a crime. Penal Code 148.5. And targeting a disabled minor with fabricated accusations, that's actionable under the Americans with Disabilities Act." Karen's smug expression faltered. Her skin paled, but she still tried to bluster. "The HOA can't be sued for keeping the neighborhood safe." Wrong again. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination against families with disabilities, and you just violated it in front of sworn officers and me. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. One muttered under his breath, "Ma'am, you may want to step back." But Karen didn't. She doubled down. "This boy is a menace. If you won't do something, the HOA will." That was it, the final straw. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and turned the camera toward Karen, the cops, and my trembling son. My voice carried with the weight of law and fury. "You just accused my autistic son of being a criminal and called armed police to our property without cause. Under the Fair Housing Act and ADA, this is harassment and discrimination. And since I'm the district attorney, I'll be prosecuting." Gasps rippled from neighbors who had begun to gather, phones out, recording. Karen's jaw dropped. "You can't do that. You're conflicted. This is personal." "You're right," I said, steady as stone. "Which is why I'll be referring this to the Attorney General's office. But don't worry, Karen. You'll still see me on the stand because this video is evidence." The officers visibly shifted sides at that moment. One turned to me respectfully. "Sir, would you like to file an official statement?" The other, reluctantly, informed Karen she was being cited for filing a false report. Her shrill protests rang through the street. "This is an HOA matter. We run this neighborhood." I couldn't help but laugh. "No, Karen, laws run this neighborhood, and you just broke every single one." What happened next was a storm that Karen never saw coming. Within days, the HOA board was scrambling. Once my office filed a civil rights complaint with HUD, the Attorney General launched an investigation. The HOA, desperate to save themselves, turned on Karen. In a unanimous vote, she was stripped of her authority. But it didn't stop there. Karen herself faced charges: harassment, false reporting, and civil liability under federal housing law. And because the entire confrontation had been caught on camera, both my video and half the neighborhood's, her reputation was shredded. Neighbors who had once been silent about her bullying now came forward with their own stories: fines for garden gnomes, threats over holiday decorations, nasty letters about children playing too loudly. The image of Karen the protector collapsed into Karen the tyrant. Daniel, meanwhile, slowly began to feel safe again. He went back to lining up his cars in the driveway, humming softly as the sunlight glinted off the toy windows. And every time I saw him smile, it reminded me why I had fought, why no HOA bully could ever win against us again. The next time Karen, or anyone like her, thinks they can weaponize police reports, intimidation, or HOA bylaws against families like mine, they'll remember this: I don't just know the law, I am the law. And that's how the HOA learned the hard way: never ever mess with a district attorney's family.